My wife said, "Don't come to my office party, it'll be awkward with my ex there." I said, "Of course, I'll stay home." What she didn't know was that I was the new regional director, her boss invited as a surprise guest. When I walked in and she saw who was sitting next to me, her face went pale. I'm David, 35, and I've been married to Rachel for 7 years. We met in college, got married young, and I thought we had the kind of relationship people envied. I was wrong. 3 weeks ago, Rachel came home from work acting strange. Not suspicious strange, excited strange. She was on her phone more than usual, smiling at texts, and when I asked what was up, she'd just say, "Work stuff," and change the subject. I didn't think much of it. Rachel worked in marketing for a mid-sized pharmaceutical company, and her annual holiday party was coming up. She'd always brought me before. Then last Tuesday, she dropped it on me while I was making dinner. "Hey, so about the office party on Friday," she started, leaning against the kitchen counter. "I think maybe you should skip it this year." I looked up from chopping vegetables. "What?" "Why?" She hesitated, which should have been my first red flag. "It's just, Marcus is going to be there." Marcus, her ex-boyfriend from before we met. They'd dated for 2 years in their early 20s, and according to Rachel, it ended amicably when he moved to Seattle for work. I'd never met the guy, never even seen a picture. "Okay," I said slowly. And I just think it would be awkward. You know how exes at work events can be. I don't want any weird tension ruining the night. It's better if I just go, have a drink with the team, and come home early. Something in her tone bothered me, but I couldn't place it. "Rachel, we've been married 7 years. Why would I care about some guy you dated over a decade ago?" "You wouldn't, but he might. He's been acting kind of, I don't know, nostalgic lately. Asking about my life, commenting on old photos on LinkedIn. I just want to avoid drama." I set down the knife. "If he's making you uncomfortable, maybe you should report it to HR." "It's not that serious," she said quickly. "I just think it's easier if you're not there." "Please, David, just this once." I agreed. Like an idiot, I agreed, because I trusted her. Because in 7 years of marriage, she'd never given me a reason not to. What Rachel didn't know was that 2 months earlier, I'd been quietly headhunted for a regional director position at her company. The offer came through a recruiter, and I'd gone through 3 rounds of interviews with corporate, not the local office where Rachel worked. I'd accepted the position and was scheduled to start the Monday after the holiday party. The CEO himself had invited me to the party as a surprise introduction to the regional staff, including Rachel's department. I hadn't told Rachel yet because I wanted to surprise her. I thought she'd be thrilled. I should mention, I'd been working remotely for a tech consulting firm for the past 4 years, so Rachel had no idea what my day-to-day looked like anymore. She knew I was interviewing for local positions, but I'd kept the details vague because the job market had been tough and I didn't want to get her hopes up. Friday night arrived. Rachel spent 2 hours getting ready, which wasn't unusual for her, but she was more meticulous than normal. She wore a black dress I'd never seen before, not inappropriate, but definitely more form-fitting than her usual work attire. She kissed me goodbye, told me not to wait up, and left. I waited an hour, then got dressed myself. I'd kept the whole regional director thing completely under wraps, even from our friends. The CEO had sent a car for me, and I arrived at the hotel venue around 8:30. The party was in full swing when I walked in. The CEO, Richard Chen, spotted me immediately and waved me over to the executive table. That's when I saw him, Marcus, sitting right next to where Richard was gesturing for me to sit. Richard introduced us, explaining that Marcus was the new VP of Sales, just promoted last month after relocating back from Seattle. Marcus shook my hand, completely unaware of who I was. Why would he be? Rachel and I had different last names. She'd kept her maiden name for professional reasons. "David's going to be our new regional director for operations," Richard announced to the table. "Starts Monday. Thought it would be good for him to meet everyone tonight. Marcus smiled. Great to have you, man. You're going to love the team here. Really solid people. I made small talk while scanning the room for Rachel. I spotted her near the bar with a group of coworkers, laughing at something someone said. She hadn't seen me yet. Then Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled, before typing a response. Something about the way he did it made my stomach turn. Your wife here tonight? Richard asked Marcus casually. Divorced, actually, Marcus said. 2 years now, but I'm working on something promising. He glanced toward the bar and I followed his gaze, straight to Rachel. My blood went cold. Oh yeah, Richard said, oblivious to my reaction. Anyone I know? Marcus lowered his voice conspiratorially. Let's just say I'm rekindling an old flame. We dated years ago before she got married. Her husband's some tech guy who works from home, barely pays attention to her. She's been receptive. I don't remember the next few seconds clearly. I remember my hands gripping the edge of the table. I remember Richard saying my name. I remember standing up. And then I remember walking toward the bar with Marcus following behind me, still talking. Rachel saw me when I was about 10 feet away. Her face didn't just go pale. It went white, pure, bloodless white. Her drink slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. David? Her voice was barely a whisper. Marcus stopped mid-sentence when he realized where I was heading. Wait, do you know... Rachel, I said calmly. I don't think you've met Marcus. Oh wait, I'm sorry. You have. He was just telling me about the old flame he's been rekindling. I turned to Marcus. The married one, with the tech husband who works from home. I watched the realization hit Marcus like a truck. His eyes went wide, flicking between Rachel and me. No, he said. No, you're David? Regional Director David, I clarified. Your new boss's new boss, actually, starting Monday. Rachel's co-workers had gone silent, forming an accidental circle around us. Someone had turned down the music. David, please, Rachel started, reaching for my arm. It's not what you think. Really? I pulled out my phone and opened it to our text thread. Because you told me to stay home so it wouldn't be awkward with your ex. But Marcus here just told me you've been receptive to his advances. Which one of you wants to fill in the blanks? Marcus held up his hands. Look, man, she told me the marriage was basically over. That you two were living separate lives and she was planning to leave. I looked at Rachel. Is that what you told him? Her silence was answer enough. We've been texting for 6 weeks, Marcus continued, apparently deciding honesty was his best play now. Since I got back to town. She said you didn't pay attention to her anymore, that you were always working, that she felt alone. 6 weeks, I repeated. So right around the time I told you I was interviewing for local positions because I wanted to be more present in our marriage. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. David, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for... We haven't actually done anything. It was just talking, just texting. I pulled up my phone again and called our cell phone carrier's customer service line. Put it on speaker right there. I need to add a line to my account for detailed text message records, I told the representative. All messages from my wife's number for the past 2 months. Rachel lunged for my phone. I stepped back. Sir, I can process that request, but it will take 3 to 5 business days, the representative said. That's fine. Please send them to the email on file. I hung up. Update 1. I didn't stay for the rest of the party. I told Richard I had a family emergency and would explain Monday. He looked concerned but nodded. As I left, I could hear Rachel calling after me, but I didn't turn around. I drove to our house, packed a bag, and went to my brother's place across town. He and his wife let me crash in their guest room without asking too many questions that night. Saturday morning, the text records came through. Apparently, I have a premium account, and they expedited it. I spent 3 hours reading through everything. It was worse than I thought. They hadn't slept together yet, but they'd planned to. Next weekend, in fact. Marcus had booked a hotel room. Rachel had told him she'd tell me she was at a work conference. The messages were explicit about what they wanted to do. There were also messages about me. Rachel complaining that I was boring, that I'd let myself go. I'd gained maybe 10 pounds, that I was more interested in video games than her. The video game thing stung because I'd taken up gaming on weekends specifically to give her space. She told me she needed alone time to decompress from work. There were also messages about finances. Rachel telling Marcus that I made good money but didn't like to spend it on experiences. Marcus promising to take her places, show her excitement. I'd been saving for a down payment on a bigger house. She knew this. We'd talked about starting a family next year. I forwarded the entire PDF to my email and my lawyer's email. Yes, I already had a lawyer. I'd called one Friday night. Sunday afternoon, Rachel showed up at my brother's house. My sister-in-law answered the door and told her I didn't want to see her. Rachel broke down crying on the porch, saying it was all a mistake, that she'd been confused, that she loved me. My brother went outside and told her to leave or he'd call the police. Monday morning, I showed up to my first day as regional director. HR had already heard about Friday night. Corporate moves fast when executives are involved. Marcus had been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into workplace conduct. Apparently pursuing a co-worker's spouse violated some ethics clauses, especially when it involved a superior and subordinate, which we technically were now. Rachel had called in sick. Richard pulled me aside before the morning meeting. "I'm sorry about all this, David. If I'd known, you couldn't have," I said, "but I appreciate the support. For what it's worth, we're documenting everything. This isn't the kind of culture we tolerate." The department meeting was awkward. Everyone knew. Small office gossip moves at light speed. But people were professional, and we focused on Q4 goals and the transition plan. Update 2. By Tuesday, Rachel had blown up my phone with over 100 messages. I blocked her number and communicated only through my lawyer. She'd moved back to her parents' house. Her mother called me and actually apologized, said she'd raised her daughter better than this. Wednesday, Marcus was terminated. Not because of the affair exactly, but because during the investigation, they found he'd been falsifying expense reports and billing personal travel to corporate. The affair had just triggered the deep dive into his activities. He called me from a random number Wednesday night, drunk, blaming me for ruining his life. I recorded the call and sent it to my lawyer. Thursday, I filed for divorce. Pennsylvania has a no-fault option, but I filed fault-based on adultery just to make it clean. My lawyer said the text records were more than sufficient evidence. Friday, 1 week after the party, Rachel showed up at my new office. Security called me before letting her up. I told them to send her away. She waited in the parking lot for 3 hours until I left work, cornered me at my car. "David, please," she said. She looked terrible. Hair unwashed, dark circles under her eyes. I made a mistake. I was flattered by the attention. I felt invisible in our marriage, and Marcus made me feel seen. I was working toward a promotion so I could be home more, I said quietly. I was saving money so we could buy a house and start a family. I played video games on weekends because you told me you needed space. Every single thing you complained about to Marcus was something I was doing for us or because you asked me to. "I know," she sobbed. "I know that now. I was stupid. I got caught up in the fantasy of it. You told him our marriage was over. You planned to cheat on me in a hotel next weekend. You complained about my body, my hobbies, my spending habits, all while I was trying to build a future for us. I'll do anything," she said. "Therapy, counseling, whatever you want." "I want a divorce," I said, "and I want you to stop showing up places I am. Next time, I'm filing a restraining order." I got in my car and left her standing there. Update 3. It's been 3 weeks since the party now. The divorce is moving forward. Rachel's lawyer tried to argue for reconciliation mediation, but my lawyer shut it down with the text evidence. Rachel got moved to a different department at work. Corporate decided it was best for everyone. She's no longer under my regional oversight, which is good because I don't want to see her. Marcus moved back to Seattle. Apparently his ex-wife heard about why he got fired and revoked his visitation with their kids pending a custody review. Turns out he'd been cheating on her too, which she'd suspected but never proven until now. I ran into one of Rachel's co-workers at a coffee shop yesterday. She apologized for not saying anything sooner, but apparently, Rachel and Marcus had been pretty obvious at work. Long lunches, closed-door conversations, lingering touches. Everyone had assumed I knew and didn't care. That hurts in a different way. The humiliation of being the clueless husband. My brother asked me last night if I felt guilty about Marcus losing his job. I don't. He lied on expense reports. He pursued a married woman while in a position of power. He would have slept with my wife if I hadn't walked into that party. Final update. It's been 2 months. The divorce was finalized last week. Rachel didn't contest it. She signed everything my lawyer put in front of her. I kept the house. Rachel took her car and half the savings. Her lawyer argued she was entitled to it despite the adultery, and I didn't have the energy to fight. I make good money now anyway. The regional director position has been intense, but rewarding. Rachel sent me a letter last week. Not through lawyers. An actual handwritten letter delivered to my office. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. She apologized, said she'd started therapy and realized she'd been chasing validation in all the wrong places. Said she'd built up resentment over small things instead of communicating with me. Said Marcus had love-bombed her with attention and promises, and she'd gotten swept up in feeling desired again. She ended it by saying she hoped I found someone who appreciated me the way I deserved, that she'd always regret what she threw away. I filed the letter away. Maybe someday it'll matter to me. Right now, it doesn't. I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. Work is good. I joined a gym, not because of Rachel's comments, but because I wanted to. I've been dating a little, nothing serious, taking my time. The regional director title has been good for me. Turns out I'm good at leadership. Richard mentioned a VP track in a year or two if I keep performing. Sometimes I think about that moment at the party when Rachel's face went pale. The instant she realized she'd been caught, that her careful planning had imploded, that the husband she'd written off was about to become her boss's boss. I don't take pleasure in her pain, but I won't lie. There was justice in that moment. Not revenge, just truth. She'd built this elaborate lie, and it collapsed in the worst possible way. I'm not bitter. I'm just done. Edit 1. A lot of people have asked if I knew something was wrong before the party. Honestly, no. Rachel was a good liar. The only thing that seemed off was her being on her phone more, but she worked in marketing. She was always on her phone. Edit 2. To answer the question about whether the job offer was real, or if I took it just to catch her, it was completely real. The timing was pure coincidence. I'd been interviewing for 2 months before they made the offer. I had no idea about Marcus until that night. Edit 3. Marcus tried to add me on LinkedIn last week. I declined.